The Flood. The assembling of the animals was the least of Noah's problems. His chief difficulty was to provide food for a year, plus accommodations. Long afterwards, Shem, the son of Noah, related to Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, the tale of their experiences with the animals in the ark. This is what he said. "We had plenty trouble in the ark. The day animals had to be fed by day, and the night animals by night. No time to sleep. My father did not know what food to give to the little Zitka. Once he cut a pomegranate in half, and a worm dropped out of the fruit and was devoured by the Zitka. So after that, my father would knead bran, let it stand until it bred worms, and then feed them to the animal. The lion suffered with a fever all the time, so he did not much annoy the others. The elephant my father found sleeping in a corner and asked him whether he needed something to eat. He answered and said, 'I saw you were very busy, and I did not wish to add to your cares.' Then my father said, 'May it be the will of the Lord to keep you alive forever.' And the blessing was realized. The difficulties were increased when the flood began to toss the ark from side to side. We were shaken up like lentils in a pot. The lions began to roar, the oxen lowed, the wolves howled, and all the animals gave vent to their agony. You never heard such calamity. Noah and the rest of us, thinking that death was near, broke into tears. Noah prayed to God, 'Lord, help us, for we are not able to bear the evil catastrophe that surrounds us. The mountainous waves toss us about. The rain we cannot see through, and death stares us in the face. Oh, hear our prayer, be gracious to us, redeem us, save us.' The flood was produced by a union of the male waters, which are above the firmament, and the female waters issuing from the earth. The upper waters rushed through the space left when God removed 2 stars out of the constellation Pleiades. Afterward, to put a stop to the flood, God had to transfer 2 stars from the constellation of the Bear to the Pleiades. That is why the Bear runs after the Pleiades. She wants her 2 children back, but they will be restored only in the future world. There were other changes among the celestial bodies during the year of the flood. All the time it lasted, the sun and moon shed no light. Therefore Noah was called by his name, the Resting One, for in his life the sun and moon rested. The ark was illuminated by a precious stone, the light of which was more brilliant by night than by day. Only by this could Noah distinguish between night and day. The duration of the flood was a whole year. It began on the 17th day of Heshwan, and the rain continued for 40 days, until the 27th of Kislew. The punishment corresponded to the crime of the sinful generation. They had led immoral lives and begotten bastard children, whose embryonic state lasts 40 days. From the 27th of Kislew until the 1st of Siwan, a period of 150 days, the water stood at one and the same height, 15 ells above the earth. During that time, all the wicked were destroyed, each receiving the punishment due to him. Cain was among those that perished, and thus the death of Abel was avenged. So powerful were the waters in working havoc that the corpse of Adam was not spared in its grave. On the 1st of Siwan, the waters began to abate, 1/4 of an ell a day, and at the end of 60 days, on the 10th day of Ab, the summits of the mountains showed themselves. But many days before, on the 10th of Tammuz, Noah had sent the raven, and a week later the dove, on the first of her 3 flights, repeated at intervals of a week. It took from the 1st of Ab until the 1st of Tishrah for the waters to subside wholly from the face of the earth. Even then the soil was so miry that they had to remain in the ark until the 27th of Heshwan, completing a full sun year, consisting of 12 moons and 11 days. Noah experienced difficulty all along in ascertaining the state of the waters. When he desired to dispatch the raven, the bird said, "The Lord, your master, hates me. and you hate me too. Your master hates me, for he had you take 7 pairs of the clean animals, but only 2 pairs of the unclean, to which I belong. You hate me, for you do not choose as a messenger a bird of one of the 7 pairs in the ark, and you send me, and of my kind there is but 1 pair. Suppose now I should perish by reason of heat or cold. Would not the world be poorer by a whole species of animals? Or can it be that you have cast a lustful eye on my mate and desire to rid yourself of me? Noah made answer and said, Wretch! I must live apart from my own wife in the ark. How much less would such thoughts occur to my mind as you inflict on me? The raven left, but his errand had no success, for when he saw the body of a dead man, he set to work to devour it, and did not execute the orders given him by Noah. Then the dove was sent out. Toward evening she returned with an olive leaf in her bill, plucked from the Mount of Olives at Jerusalem, for the Holy Land had not been ravaged by the deluge. As she plucked it, she said to God, O Lord of the world, let my food be as bitter as the olive, but give it to me from your hand, rather than it should be sweet, and I be delivered into the power of men. Noah leaves the ark. Though the earth assumed its old form at the end of the year of punishment, Noah did not abandon the ark until he received the command from God to leave it. He had said to himself, As I entered the ark at the bidding of God, so will I leave it only at his bidding. Yet when God told Noah to go out of the ark, he refused, because he feared that after he had lived on the dry land for some time and begotten children, God would bring another flood. He therefore would not leave the ark until God swore he would never visit the earth with a flood again. When he stepped out from the ark into the open, Noah began to weep bitterly at the sight of the enormous ravages, and he said to God, O Lord of the world, you are called the merciful, and you should have had mercy on your creatures. God answered and said, O you foolish shepherd, now you speak to me. Not so when I address kind words to you, saying, I saw you as a righteous man and perfect in your generation, and I will bring the flood on the earth to destroy all flesh. Make an ark for yourself of gopher wood. Thus spoke I to you, telling you all these circumstances, that you might entreat mercy for the earth. But you, as soon as you heard that you would be rescued in the ark, you did not concern yourself about the ruin which would strike the earth, but you built an ark for yourself, in which you were saved. Now that the earth is wasted, you open your mouth to supplicate and pray? Noah realized that he had been guilty of folly. To propitiate God and acknowledge his sin, he brought a sacrifice, and God accepted the offering with favor. The sacrifice was not offered by Noah with his own hands. The priestly services connected with it were performed by his son Shem. There was a reason for this. One day in the ark, Noah forgot to give his ration to the lion, and the hungry beast struck him so violent a blow with his paw that he was lame forever after, and, having a bodily defect, he was not permitted to do the offices of a priest. The sacrifices consisted of an ox, a sheep, a goat, 2 turtle doves, and 2 young pigeons. Noah had chosen these kinds because he supposed they were appointed for sacrifices, seeing that God had commanded him to take 7 pairs with him. The altar was erected in the same place on which Adam and Cain and Abel had brought their sacrifices, and on which later the altar was to be in the sanctuary of Jerusalem. After the sacrifice was completed, God blessed Noah and his sons. He made them to be rulers of the world, and he gave them a command, saying, Be fruitful and multiply on the earth. For during their time in the ark, the 2 sexes, of men and animals alike, had lived apart from each other, because, while a public calamity rages, continence is becoming even for those who are left unscathed. This law of conduct had been violated by none in the ark except by Ham, by the dog, and by the raven. They all received a punishment. Ham's was that his descendants were men of a dark-hued skin. As token that he would destroy the earth no more, God set his rainbow in the clouds. Even if men should be steeped in sin again, the rainbow proclaims to them that their sins will not cause the whole world to be destroyed again by flood. Times came in the course of the ages when men were pious enough not to have to live in the dread of punishment. In such times, the rainbow was not visible. God granted permission to Noah and his descendants to use the flesh of animals for food, which had been forbidden from the time of Adam until then. But they were to abstain from the use of blood. Then he ordained the 7 Noachian laws, the observance of which is incumbent upon all men, not upon Israel alone. God emphasized the command against shedding of human blood. Who would shed man's blood, his blood would be shed. Even if human judges let the guilty man go free, his punishment would overtake him. He would die an unnatural death, such as he inflicted upon his fellow man. Even beasts that slew men, even of them would their life be required. Noah lost his name, the pious, when he began to occupy himself with the growing of the vine. He became a man of the ground, and his first attempt to produce wine at the same time produced the first to drink to excess, the first to utter curses upon his associates, and the first to introduce slavery. This is the way it came about. Noah found the vine which Adam had taken with him from paradise. He tasted the grapes, and finding them good, he resolved to plant the vine and tend it. On the same day he planted it, it bore fruit. He put it in the winepress, drew off the juice, drank it, and became drunk, and was dishonored, all in one day. His assistant in the work of cultivating the vine was none other than Satan, who just happened along at the very moment when he was planting the slip he had found. Satan asked him, "What is it you are planting here?" Noah, "A vineyard." Satan, "And what may be the qualities that it produces?" Noah, "The fruit it bears is sweet, be it dry or moist, and it yields wine that rejoices the heart of man." Satan, "Let us go into partnership in this business." Noah, "Good idea." Satan then slaughtered a lamb, a lion, a pig, and a monkey. The blood of each he poured under the vine. Thus he conveyed to Noah the qualities of wine. Before man drinks it, he is innocent as a lamb. If he drinks of it moderately, he feels strong as a lion. If he drinks more of it than he can bear, he resembles the pig. And if he drinks to the point of intoxication, then he behaves like a monkey. He dances around, sings, talks obscenely, and knows not what he is doing. He's out of his mind, as the saying goes. This deterred Noah no more than did the example of Adam, whose fall had also been due to wine. For the forbidden fruit had been the grape. In his drunken condition, Noah went to the tent of his wife. His son Ham saw him there and told his brothers what he had noticed, and said, "The first man had but 2 sons, and one killed the other. This man Noah has 3 sons, yet he desires to beget a 4th. Nor did Ham rest satisfied with these disrespectful words against his father. He added to this sin of irreverence the still greater outrage of attempting to perform an operation upon his father designed to prevent procreation. When Noah woke up from his wine and became sober, he pronounced a curse upon Ham in the person of his youngest son, Canaan. To Ham himself he could do no harm, for God had conferred a blessing upon Noah and his 3 sons as they departed from the ark. Therefore he put the curse on the last-born son of the son that had prevented him from begetting another. The descendants of Ham through Canaan therefore have red eyes, because Ham looked upon the nakedness of his father. They have misshapen lips, because Ham spoke with his lips to his brothers about the unseemly condition of his father. They have twisted curly hair, because Ham turned and twisted his head around to see the nakedness of his father. And they go about naked, because Ham did not cover the nakedness of his father. Thus he was rewarded, for it is the way of God to mete out punishment measure for measure. Canaan had to suffer vicariously for his father's sin, yet some of the punishment was inflicted on him on his own account. For it had been Canaan who had drawn the attention of Ham to Noah's revolting condition. Ham, it appears, was but the worthy father of such a son. The last will and testament of Canaan addressed to his children read as follows: "Speak not the truth. Lie to protect your brother. Hold not yourselves aloof from theft. Lead a dissolute life. Hate your master with an exceeding great hate, and love one another." As Ham was made to suffer for his irreverence, so Shem and Japheth received a reward for the filial, differential way in which they took a garment, laid it upon their shoulders, and walking backward with averted faces, covered the nakedness of their father. Naked, the descendants of Ham, the Egyptians and the Ethiopians, were led away captive into exile by the king of Assyria, while the descendants of Shem, the Assyrians, even when the angel of the Lord burned them in camp, were not exposed. Their garments remained upon their corpses unsinged. And in time to come, when Gog shall suffer his defeat, God will provide both shrouds and a place of burial for him, and all his multitude, the posterity of Japheth. It was Shem who deserved the larger portion of praise. He was the first to set about covering his father. Japheth joined him after the good deed had begun. Therefore, the descendants of Shem received as their special reward the tallit, the garment worn by them, while the Japhethites have only the toga. A further distinction accorded to Shem was the mention of his name in connection with the blessing of Noah. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem," he had said, though as a rule the name of God is not joined to the name of a living person, only to the name of one who has departed this life. The relation of Shem to Japheth was expressed in the blessing their father pronounced on them, saying, "God will grant a land of beauty to Japheth, and his sons will be students, dwelling in the academies of Shem." At the same time, Noah conveyed by his words that the Shekinah would dwell only in the first temple, erected by Solomon, a son of Shem, and not in the second temple, the builder of which would be Cyrus, a descendant of Japheth. Noah's descendants spread abroad. When it became known to Ham that his father had cursed him, he fled, ashamed, and with his family he settled in the city built by him, and named Neelatamauk for his wife. Jealous of his brother, Japheth followed his example. He likewise built a city which he named for his wife, Adatanesis. Shem was the only one of the sons of Noah who did not abandon him. In the vicinity of his father's home, by the mountain, he built his city, to which he also gave his wife's name, Zedeketelbab. The 3 cities are near Mount Lubar, upon which the ark rested. The first lies to the south of it, the second to the west, and the third to the east. Noah endeavored to instill the ordinances and commandments known to him upon his children and his children's children. In particular, he admonished them against fornication, uncleanliness, and all the iniquity that had brought about the flood. He reproached them for living apart from one another with their jealousies, for he feared that after his death they might go so far as to war against each other. He was afraid that they might be annihilated from the earth, like those wicked that went before. Another law he enjoined on them was the law ordaining that the fruit of a tree shall not be used the first 3 years it bears, and even in the 4th year it shall be the portion of the priests alone, after a part thereof has been offered upon the altar of God. Having finished his teachings and injunctions, Noah said, "For thus did Enoch, your ancestor, exhort his son Methuselah, and Methuselah his son Lamech, and Lamech to me. And now I also exhort you, my children." In the year 1569, after the creation of the world, Noah divided the earth by lottery among his 3 sons, in the presence of an angel. Each one stretched out his hand and took a paper from the hand of Noah. Shem's paper was inscribed with the middle of the earth, and this portion became the inheritance of his descendants to all eternity. Noah rejoiced that the lottery had assigned it to Shem, because this fulfilled his blessing on him, and God in the habitation of Shem. For 3 holy places fell within his land: the Holy of Holies in the temple, Mount Sinai, the middle of the desert, and Mount Zion, the middle point of the navel of the earth. The south fell to Ham, and the north the inheritance of Japheth. The land of Ham is hot, and Japheth's cold, but Shem's is neither hot nor cold. Its temperature is hot and cold mixed. In turn, the 3 sons of Noah, while they were still standing in the presence of their father, divided his portion among his own children. Noah, threatening with his curse any who should stretch out his hand to take a portion not assigned to him by lottery, and they all cried, "So be it, so be it." Thus were divided 104 lands and 99 islands among 72 nations, each with a language of its own, using 16 different sets of characters for writing. To Japheth were allotted 44 lands, 33 islands, 22 languages, and 5 kinds of writing. Ham received 34 lands, 33 islands, 24 languages, and 5 kinds of writing. And Shem, 26 lands, 23 islands, 26 languages, and 6 kinds of writing. 1 set of written characters more to Shem than to either of his brothers, the extra set being Hebrew. The land appointed as the inheritance of the 12 sons of Jacob was provisionally granted to Canaan, Zidon, Heth, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. It was the duty of these nations to take care of the land until the rightful owners should come. No sooner had the children of Noah taken possession of the lands apportioned to them than the unclean spirits began to tempt men and torment them with pain and all sorts of suffering, leading to spiritual and physical death. On the entreaties of Noah, God sent down the angel Raphael, who banished 9/10 of the unclean spirits from the earth, leaving but 1/10 to punish the sinners. Then Raphael, supported by the chief of the unclean spirits, revealed to Noah all the remedies residing in plants, that he might resort to them at need. Noah recorded them in a book which he transmitted to his son Shem. This is the source from which go back all the medical books from the wise men of India, Aram, Macedonia, and Egypt. The sages of India devoted themselves mostly to the study of curative trees and spices. The Arameans were well versed in the knowledge of all property of grains and seeds. They translated the old medical books into their language. The wise men of Macedonia were the first to apply medical knowledge practically, while the Egyptians sought to effect cures by means of magic arts and astrology. They taught the Midrash of the Chaldees, composed by Kangar, the son of the son of Kesed. Medical skill spread further and further until the time of Aesculapius. This Macedonian sage, accompanied by 40 learned magicians, journeyed from country to country until they came to the land beyond India, in the direction of paradise. They hoped there to find some of the wood of the tree of life, and thus spread their fame over the whole world. Their hope was frustrated. When they arrived at the spot, they found healing trees, and the wood of the tree of life. But when they were in the act of stretching out their hands to gather it in, lightning flashed out of the ever-turning sword, smote them to the ground, and they were killed. With them disappeared all knowledge of medicine, and it did not revive until the time of the first Artaxerxes, under the Macedonian sage Hippocrates and the Hebrew Asaph. The depravity of mankind. With the spread of mankind, corruption increased. While Noah was still alive, the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth appointed princes over each of the 3 groups: Nimrod for the descendants of Ham, Joktan for the descendants of Shem, and Penic for the descendants of Japheth. 10 years before Noah's death, the number of those subject to the three princes amounted to millions. When this great multitude of men came to Babylonia, they said to one another, "The time is coming when, at the end of days, neighbor will be separated from neighbor, and brother from brother, and one will carry on war against the other. Let us build a city and a tower whose top reaches to heaven, and we will make a great name for ourselves for all time. Let us make bricks, and each one write his name upon his brick." All agreed to this proposal, with the exception of 12 pious men, Abraham among them. They refused to join the others. They were seized by the people and brought before the three princes, to whom they gave the following reason for their refusal. "We will not make bricks, nor remain with you, for we know but one God, and him we serve. Even if you burn us in the fire together with the bricks, we will not walk in your ways." Nimrod and Penic flew into such a passion over the 12 men that they resolved to throw them into the fire. Joktan, however, besides being a God-fearing man, was close kin to the men on trial and planned to save them. He proposed to his 2 colleagues to grant a 7 days reprieve. His plan was accepted, such deference being paid him as the principal among the 3. The 12 were incarcerated in the house of Joktan. That night he charged 50 of his attendants to mount the prisoners on mules and take them to the mountains. Thus they would escape the threatened punishment. Joktan provided them with food for a month. He was sure that in the meantime either a change of sentiment would come about and the people desist from their purpose, or God himself would help the fugitives. 11 of the prisoners accepted the plan with gratitude. Abraham alone rejected it, saying, "Behold, today we run to the mountains to escape from the fire. But if wild beasts from the mountains devour us, or if food is lacking, so that we die by famine, we shall be found fleeing the people of the land and dying in our sins. Now, as the Lord in whom I trust lives, I will not depart from this place where they have imprisoned me. And if I am to die through my sins, then I will die by the will of God, according to his desire." In vain, Joktan endeavored to persuade Abraham to flee, but he persisted in his refusal. He remained behind alone in the prison house while the other 11 made their escape. At the end of the 7 days, when the people returned and demanded the death of the 12, Joktan could produce only Abraham. His excuse was that the rest had broken loose during the night. The people were about to throw themselves on Abraham and cast him into the brick furnace. Suddenly, an earthquake was felt. The fire darted from the furnace, and all who were standing around about, 84,000 of the people, were consumed, while Abraham remained untouched. Then he went to his 11 friends in the mountains and told them of the miracle. They all returned with him, and, unmolested by the people, they gave praise and thanks to God. Nimrod. The first among the leaders of corrupt men was Nimrod. His father Cush had married his mother at an advanced age, and Nimrod was surpassingly dear to him as the son of his old age. Cush gave Nimrod the clothes made from the skins God had furnished Adam and Eve at the time of their leaving paradise. Cush himself had gained possession of them through Ham. From Adam they had descended to Enoch, and from him to Methuselah and to Noah, and the last had taken them with him into the ark. When they were all leaving the ark, Ham stole the garments and kept them concealed, finally passing them on to his firstborn son, Cush. Cush, in turn, hid them for many years. When his son, Nimrod, reached his 20th year, he gave them to him. These garments had a wonderful property. He who wore them was both invincible and irresistible. The beasts and birds of the woods fell down before Nimrod as soon as they caught sight of him dressed in these skins, and he was equally victorious in his combats with men. The source of his unconquerable strength was not known to them. They attributed it to his personal prowess, and therefore appointed him king over themselves. This was done after a conflict between the descendants of Cush and the descendants of Japheth, from which Nimrod emerged triumphant, having defeated the enemy totally with the assistance of a handful of warriors. Nimrod chose Shinar as his capital. Then he extended his dominion farther and farther until he rose by cunning and force to be the sole ruler of the whole world, the first mortal to hold universal sway. As the ninth ruler to possess the same power will be the Messiah. His sinfulness kept pace with his growing power. Since the flood there had been no such sinner as Nimrod. He fashioned idols of wood and stone and worshipped them. Not satisfied to lead a godless life himself, he did all he could to tempt his subjects into evil ways, and in this he was aided and abetted by his son Mardon. This son outstripped his father in evil. It was their time and their life that gave rise to the proverb, "Out of the wicked comes forth wickedness." The great success that attended all Nimrod's undertakings produced a sinister effect. Men no longer trusted in God, but rather in their own prowess and ability, an attitude to which Nimrod tried to convert the whole world. Therefore people said, "Since the creation of the world, there has been no one like Nimrod, a mighty hunter of men and beasts, a mighty sinner before God." Not even all this satisfied Nimrod's evil desires. Not enough that he turned men away from God. He did all he could to make them pay divine honors to himself. He set himself up as a god, and made a seat for himself in imitation of the seat of God. It was a tower built out of round rock, and on it he placed a throne of cedar wood, upon which arose, one after another, 4 thrones, one of iron, one of copper, one of silver, and one of gold. Crowning all, upon the golden throne, lay a precious stone, round in shape and gigantic in size. This served him as a seat, and as he sat upon it, all nations came and paid him divine homage. Next, the Tower of Babel. End Part 9 of 95, TheLegendsOfTheJews.com.